All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're heading over to Kazan, Russia.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, to check out the BRICS summit happening right now.
BRICS. Okay. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
Exactly. You know, it's more than just a summit this year. It's causing quite a stir.
I can imagine. I've heard rumblings about this one. What's the big deal this time around?
Well, think about this. Over 40 nations,
Wow.
including some big players like Turkey and Indonesia, all gathered to, kind of imagine a future where the U.S. dollar isn't calling all the shots.
That's a pretty bold vision, isn't it? A world without the dollar at the center.
Right. And a lot of what we're hearing is about this idea of, pushing back against Western dominance.
Yeah, pushing back. I can see why that would appeal to a lot of countries right now.
And it's not all talk.
No.
There's a real sense that, a lot of these BRICS nations are starting to feel like, particularly with the sanctions against Russia, that the West is using the global financial system as kind of a weapon.
Interesting. So using financial systems to punish or pressure countries they disagree with?
Yeah, pretty much. And this quote from Alex Gabuev, he's an expert on Russia, kind of sums it up. He asks, how can you talk about Russia's global isolation when all these leaders are coming to Kazan?
Okay, yeah, I see his point. If Russia's so isolated, then what are all these countries doing at their summit?
Exactly.
So it sounds like BRICS is becoming a real alternative, like a new center of power.
And they're not just, making speeches about it. They're actually looking at practical ways to kind of break free from relying so much on the U.S. dollar and the SWIFT system.
So de-dollarization. I've heard that term thrown around a lot lately. What does it actually mean?
Yeah, what would it mean for you if the currency you use every day, the one you buy groceries with, pay rent with, if that was suddenly not the global standard anymore?
That's a good question to consider. What would it mean?
Right, and that's what BRICS is grappling with right now. They're looking at creating a new BRICS currency. And they're trying to find ways to use their own national currencies more.
Oh, so like if Brazil and India trade with each other,
Yeah.
they just use their own currencies instead of converting everything to dollars first.
Yep. And then there are these alternative payment systems they're developing.
So trying to build a whole new financial infrastructure that bypasses the Western-dominated systems.
Exactly. And for Russia in particular, it seems like this is all about strategic maneuvering, making sure they're not vulnerable to this kind of economic pressure in the future.
I can understand that perspective given the sanctions they faced.
Right. This quote from Chris Weaver, he's an expert on the Russian economy, kind of puts it bluntly. He says Russia's main interest is to break the dominance of the U.S. dollar so that sanctions won't matter so much.
It's a bold strategy and makes you wonder if other countries might follow suit, start looking for ways to protect themselves from potential sanctions or pressure.
Definitely something to think about.
It's a bit of a power play, isn't it? Almost like they're trying to create this this multipolar world, as some people call it.
Yeah, where power isn't just concentrated in one place. And you see that ambition in how quickly BRICS is expanding, like bringing in all these new members from around the globe.
It's growing fast. I heard even Egypt and the UAE are joining.
Yeah. And Iran, too. It's not just about the numbers, though. It's about the diversity of these countries, different regions, different political systems, different economies. It's like BRICS is trying to build a truly global movement.
That's a powerful message for sure.
And what's really fascinating is that for a lot of countries, joining BRICS isn't just about, being anti-West.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. This quote from Tara Varma, she's a foreign policy expert, sums it up well. She says, they don't want to have to choose between partners.
So it's more about having options, having a seat at multiple tables, hedging their bets in a world that's changing so quickly.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, if you were a country trying to navigate all this, what alliances would you want?
That's a tough question.
Right. But it's not all just about power and economics, right?
All this is going on.
We also see this theme of peace and stability coming up a lot.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and it seems a little ironic given that BRICS is kind of shaking things up, trying to change the established order.
Yeah, it is a bit ironic.
But we see BRICS leaders calling for peaceful resolutions to conflicts like the war in Ukraine and the ongoing situation in the Middle East.
So are they walking the walk or just talking the talk?
That's the question, isn't it? Like Indian Prime Minister Modi said, we believe that problems should be resolved only through peaceful means.
Right. Can they advocate for peace while also challenging the very structures that, have maintained some level of, however imperfect, global stability for decades?
That's the big question we need to unpack. It's this tension between what they want to achieve and how they're going about it, the rhetoric versus the reality.
Exactly. A lot to dig into there. Yeah, that's it. That tension. Ambition versus action. It's fascinating.
And it really makes you think about what a world with BRICS, really calling the shots would actually look like. What would that mean?
Yeah. Big question. Where do we even start?
Well, let's start with the economics of it all. I mean, if BRICS really does manage to create some, viable alternatives to the US dollar, it could completely change the game when it comes to global trade and finance.
Yeah, for sure. The U.S. dollar, I mean, it's so central to how things work right now. Most international transactions.
In dollars.
Exactly. It gives the U.S. a lot of power, a lot of leverage.
So what happens if BRICS comes up with their own currency?
Right. Or even if countries just, start using their own currencies more when they trade with each other.
Yeah.
Suddenly the dollar's not the only game in town.
Okay, so say that happens. What does that actually mean for everyday people, our listeners? What changes?
Well, think about it. It could affect, everything. The prices of things you buy, things from other countries. It could even affect how much it costs to travel.
Yeah.
Imagine planning a trip. Suddenly, exchange rates are totally different.
Oh, wow.
Because the dollar's not the main reference point anymore.
Huh.
Or think about, your favorite coffee. If it comes from another country. The price could go up because, your currency is not worth as much as it used to be.
Wow. That's a real, practical impact. Makes you think.
Yeah. And it's not just about consumers.
Businesses too, right?
Exactly. Businesses would have to adapt. They'd need to rethink how they price things. They'd have to think about managing risk.
Because who knows what's going to happen to currencies.
Exactly. Supply chains could be disrupted.
Right.
It's a lot of uncertainty.
It sounds kind of chaotic, honestly.
It could be, for sure. But change, change always brings challenges.
Yeah.
But it also creates new opportunities.
Okay, so what are some of the good things that could come out of all this?
Well, one thing is it could help level the playing field for developing countries.
Yes.
Right now, a lot of them are stuck using the dollar for trade, even if it's not a good deal for them. A more multipolar system.
Yeah.
More options. More power to negotiate.
So it's like, breaking free from having to rely on one single currency.
Exactly. And it could actually lead to more stable global markets. Right now, everything's tied to the dollar. If it goes up, everything goes up. If it goes down.
Yeah. It's a kind of a roller coaster.
Right. But a more diversified system, one where no single currency is dominant.
It could be more balanced.
Exactly. More resilient. So, yeah, there are definitely some potential benefits to consider.
Okay, so we've talked economics. What about everything else?
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole world order, relationships between countries, that kind of stuff. How would that be affected?
International relations. Yeah, that's a big one. If BRICS starts calling more of the shots, we could see a shift in, who's allied with who.
Countries jumping ship.
Maybe. Some might gravitate toward BRICS out of, economic self-interest. Others might just want more distance from the West.
More independence.
Exactly. And that could change how global issues are dealt with. Climate change, conflict resolution, humanitarian crises, all of it.
Because right now, who kind of sets the agenda for those things?
The West, largely. Through the UN, through other institutions. But if BRICS has more influence...
It could be a whole different ballgame.
Different priorities, different solutions. Developing countries, they have a stronger voice within BRICS. They might push for things that, specifically address their needs and concerns.
Which could be a good thing, right?
Potentially.
Yeah.
It could lead to, more equitable outcomes, more sustainable solutions.
It's interesting to think about the countries that have traditionally been, kind of on the sidelines.
Yeah.
They might actually have more say in things, more power.
Exactly. That's one of the most fascinating aspects of this whole BRICS story, I think. It's not just about, challenging the old guard. It's about creating a system that's more inclusive, more representative.
So we've talked economics, geopolitics. But what about the cultural side of things? What we watch, what we listen to, what we learn. Would that be different too?
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, it's possible, right? If the West's influence starts to fade, maybe we'll see less of that, Western cultural dominance.
And more from other parts of the world.
Exactly. More appreciation for diverse cultural expressions.
So, instead of Hollywood movies being everywhere, maybe we'll see more Bollywood films or Chinese sci-fi or Brazilian telenovelas becoming global hits.
Yeah. It's already happening in some ways. Korean dramas are huge all over the world. African music is influencing charts. Fashion, food from all over. It's gaining popularity.
It makes you wonder, right, what will be considered cool or popular in the future?
Right.
Could learning Mandarin or Hindi become as common as learning French or Spanish is now?
I mean, it's not impossible. As power shifts, so does, what's considered valuable, what languages you need to know, what cultural knowledge is important.
Wow. That would be a big change. Imagine all the cultural exchange. Music, fashion, food, stories.
Yeah, it could be amazing.
But, more interaction between cultures, isn't that going to cause some friction too?
Definitely a possibility. I mean,
Right.
will this lead to more understanding between cultures? Or will it just create more clashes, different values bumping up against each other?
Yeah. That's something to think about. How do we make sure this shift is about, genuine exchange and respect, not just one dominant culture replacing another one?
It's a tough question. Open dialogue is key. Intercultural education. Being willing to see things from other perspectives. We have to move beyond this, us versus them way of thinking.
It sounds like it's going to be complicated.
It will be, but it could also be an incredibly exciting time to be alive. All these new cultural influences, the world changing.
Yeah, it's definitely a time of change, that's for sure. And uncertainty. But also a lot of possibility. It's all connected, right? What we've been talking about with BRICS. It's not just about economics and power. It's about the whole world changing, how we connect with each other across cultures.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
So as we finish up this deep dive, we really want you to think about this. What resonated with you the most?
Yeah.
What parts of this possible power shift excited you? What worried you? What do you think the future holds?
This is just the start of the conversation. Keep exploring, keep questioning. The world's changing fast.
And the future isn't something that just happens to us, right? We all have a part in shaping it. So until next time, keep those deep diving minds engaged.